You there?
Hello. Hey, how's it going?
Doing good. Just making sure everything's all right.
Cool.
Can hear me? I can hear you just fine. I can see you
Yep.
okay. All right. Well, um, we'll start at 6 again.
Sweet.
Yeah, in 7 minutes or so. So I'm gonna check off for now, and then I'll rally you questions later in the session.
Cool. Sounds good. Okay, well, we're getting close to the time. We don't have anyone in the Google Hangout at the moment, but we do seem to have people in the YouTube live stream. So I guess we'll give it a couple of minutes. And then if you want to come join on the Hangout from the live stream, go ahead. We've got space. If you'd rather stay there, then that's totally fine too. It'll be easier for you to ask questions at any point if you're on the Google Hangout though, as opposed to the live stream, as that's the one I'll be in. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm Gane. I
Hi.
missed the first season.
Did you see it? Did you see the video though? The video afterwards?
I have already watched the first.
Good, good. Well, we'll have a quick recap of the first one anyway, because it's important for what we'll be doing today as well.
I have some plans and I forgot about first, but now I am ready.
Hey, love to hear it.
To get useful information about fact check.
Okay, well, it's it's 5 o'clock here, so I guess that's 6 o'clock where with the allotted start time in Central European summertime. So I'm going to get started. For people who are watching, if you it would probably be best if you mute your microphone if you're on the Hangout, and that way there won't be any feedback or any echo with the sound. Hello, my name is Alistair Reed. I'm a journalist and fact checker and hoax buster. At the moment, I work at Press Association. Before that, I was at an organization called First Draft, looking at all the ways which news organizations and journalists can find newsworthy material on social media, but also importantly, how to verify that. Here, I'm not representing First Draft or Press Association. I'm doing this in a collaboration with TOL, where I've done some training with them before. And this week, we are looking into an introduction on the types of, on how to debunk stories and how to get yourself set up on looking for misinformation and looking at the different communities where it arises. I'm going to do a quick recap at the start, though, of what we covered last week, because it's quite important for what we did, what we'll be doing today. So I'm just going to share my screen, and then I'll go to the slides. and we'll get going.
Okay.
Okay. So can everybody see that okay?
Okay. Um,
So is that all displaying okay? It should
I
just
see.
say, it should just have the first slide, becoming an expert fact checker and hoax buster. That's session 2.
Mhm.
Does that look all okay?
Okay. Okay.
Great. Okay, let's get started. So session 2. Well, a quick recap on what we did last week and what we'll be doing in the weeks ahead. Last week, we covered the different types and sources of misinformation. This week, we're looking at an introduction on how to debunk stories, how to know if something is not true, and the questions that we can ask and find answers for. Also, how to set up properly to monitor where the stories, the fake stories, the false stories come from, and also how they spread. So that's this week. Next week, we'll be doing a bit more detail in this debunking. Before we go into more detail on geolocation, I have a guest lecturer, which I'll hopefully be able to confirm next week. And then we'll have some best practices in debunking and communicating the truth before we look at investigating websites, networks, and the individuals distributing fake news. And finally, we'll have a guest lecturer who I also hope to confirm next week too. So let's have a quick recap on last week. So this week we're talking about debunking misinformation and setting up how to monitor story spread. But last week we covered the types of misinformation, and we talked about a scale of intent, how at one end you have stories and types of misinformation which people don't really, they don't mean any harm, they don't mean bad, they don't mean to cause distress in what they're doing. And at that end, we have things like satire and parody. These are jokes. This is fun stories or fun pictures or videos which are meant to poke fun. They're meant to make fun of people in power often, or make a joke about society. And these kind of fake stories they're important in a healthy democracy to be able to, for free speech, to be able to make fun of people in power. So that's right down at the bottom end of the scale of intent of when people mean to do things in a harmful way. But we also have clickbait. Clickbait is when you have a headline which is misleading. It's not completely true to the story, and the reason often is for people, they want you to click on a story, they want you to go to the website. And this was actually a good example found by Farid and posted to our Facebook group. He found a story which said, it was in Russian, but it said, all France mourns, Hollande died of cancer. Now, when people see that, they think, oh, Francois Hollande, the old president, but it was actually his brother. Now, this is a good example of clickbait because the headline is not false, but it's also not all of the information. It's deceptive. It wants you to click on the link, go to the website, but it's not what you expect. So that's kind of a little bit up on the scale of intent there. After that, we have misleading stories, which again, it's not 100% false, but it's also not 100% true. Often in these stories, they will take some of the information, but they will hide some of the information so that they give a misleading story. It makes you think something different than the full truth. Going up the scale of intent, we also have false context. And this is where we get into the more dangerous and the nasty side of this, is when people are trying to trick you. They're trying to make you believe something which is not true, and they're doing it with things by taking it from an old event. These pictures and this video in the middle there were all taken from an old event, but used to be something different. On the left, the Munich shooting, that was actually from an event in a police training exercise in Manchester. In the middle, we have a video of Uber riots that people are now saying is Muslim migrants rioting. It's not true. It's Uber riots, Uber drivers. And on the right, that was not true as well. So that false context is something very common. Then we have imposters. These are accounts, social media accounts or websites, which pretend to be something that they're not. So I don't know if you can see there, but the Donald Trump account, the @ there, the username is real Donald Trump. That's not really Donald Trump. both the New York Times article and ABC News article, they are from websites which look like the New York Times and ABC, but they are not. They are not true. And these are sites, websites, or social media accounts which pretend to look like a trusted source, but they are lying. So we're going further up this scale of intent now to where we have manipulated content. So it's like a real picture, but they have changed it with something. They've used Photoshop or an image editing or video editing software to change it and make it not real. This poor man here, the Sikh man, his photo was used again and again to make him look like a bomber, but he was just taking a picture. What he's holding in his hand there, in real life, that was an iPad, and they changed the picture to make it not true. So we've got manipulated content, and then at the top, we have fabricated content. So nothing about this is true. The headline is not true, and nothing in the story is true. And that's when they're trying to often push a social or a political agenda and make people believe things that aren't true. And all of these things, which we're going to talk about today, are very important to know, and especially the tools and the tips, which we will talk about. But one of the most important things is to recognize what I call your whoa response, your wow response, because clickbait, just like fake news, it's designed to trigger a strong emotional response. The reason that misinformation is successful and the reason that it spreads a long way and a lot of people read it is because it makes people angry, or it makes people laugh, or it surprises people, or it shocks people. And it's that wow response. It's as journalists, it's our news sense. You know, when we think something is newsworthy, that is the most important, one of the most important parts of this. Because if we don't recognize our wow response, when we see something which is crazy, that makes us angry or shocks us, we have to recognize that and then think, is this true, or is someone trying to trick me? And that's when we start to go into some of the tips and techniques which we'll discuss now, because it's all types of different things. It's not just stories like this. It can also be pictures from tweets. It can also be videos, and it can even be like WhatsApp messages. Often we see lies and false news spreading in WhatsApp messages. So it's all kinds of different things we need to be aware of. And it is also memes, things like joke pictures, joke videos, which people draw all over. And these are very important and very a big part of how these things spread, because we are very visual animals. We respond to visual stimulus, and then we share this kind of thing. Sorry, I can hear someone has their microphone on. If you could turn your microphone off if you're watching the Hangout, that would be great, because I can hear everything coming back. So can somebody turn off their microphone? That would be really useful. Thank you. So what do? We verify everything. Anything that triggers our whoa response, our wow response, should be something that we want to verify and something that we look into to try and use some of these tips and tools and check whether it is true or not. This is something which, while we're at First Draft, that we produce, which anybody can use, and you can download it at that link, bit.ly/vvguide. And these are the kind of questions that we want to ask when we see something that it makes us angry or surprises us or that we think is not true. Are we looking at the original? Are we looking at something old, or is this really new? Do we know who captured the photo or the video? Do you know where the photo or video was captured? Do you know when, and do you know why? So I'm going to say again, can you please turn off your microphone if you're watching the Hangout, because it is very distracting trying to do this. Thank you very much. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at some different pictures and different stories and some different videos and things like that, and see whether the different tools that we can use and the different techniques to see if they're true or false. So number one, this picture shows crowds waiting to see Donald Trump speak at a rally in Florida. As you can see the picture there, it says, "The media is furious. Trump is not paying them. The crowd is waiting for Trump rally at Jacksonville, Florida. And we're going to do this like a quiz. So don't say it, but what do you think? Do you think this is true or false? How would we know? How would we approach this? So have you decided if you think it's true or false? It's fake. How do we know though? How can we know this? Well, apart from actually being there at this rally, what are the questions we can ask? If you are using a Google Chrome as your browser, this is all it takes. It is very, very quick and it's very easy. Tip number one, if you're using Google Chrome, you see a picture and you think it might be fake. All you have to do is right-click on the picture, right-click with your mouse, go search Google for image, and then it will appear and show you where that image has appeared online before. It will look through the Google Images database and it will see if it has a match, if it has a record of that picture before. In this case, we can see that the picture is actually from when the Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA, the basketball team. It's from a sports event, basically. It is not from a Trump rally. And that's all it takes. It's a very, very quick check, and it's a very easy check. It takes just right-click, go search Google for image, and then it will open in a new window to tell you where that picture might appear online before. So you can also do this by going to images.google.com or by going to tineye.com and putting the image URL into the website, or you can upload the image if you downloaded it, and you can do the same kind of checks. So number one, reverse image search, that's called. You want to see if an image appears in an online database already to tell you if that image is old or if it is new. Number two, excuse me, in our quiz. After the Brexit vote, Fox News initially had the story as UK votes to leave UN. And in the picture there, looks like in the tweet, someone says, according to Fox News, we are leaving the UN. In the picture itself, it says, British PM says he will step down, UK votes to leave UN. So do we think this is true or false? It's a good question. This time it is true, but how do we know? When you have a news situation like this, it's often one of the first things which journalists do to check is to look and see if there are other people telling you the same thing. With journalism, always, we have to have multiple sources. So if there are other people telling you the same thing, or you see pictures from different people, from different angles, all saying the same thing, that is a big positive. It gives us more information about whether we can know if something is true or false. And I should say, none of these tips should be the golden answer. It is all about gathering more information. It is not a yes or no answer when we are doing these checks. We are gathering as much information as possible to give us more confidence if something is true or false. So if we see lots of examples of the same thing, of the same event, of the same story, coming from different sources and sources that we trust, then that is something which will tell us that it is more likely to be true. So, number one, reverse image search. Number two, check for other reports which say or show the same thing. Number three, Lionel Richie, the singer Lionel Richie, who I hope you know, has registered patents for everything from scented candle holders to dinner plates and loungewear under the brand name, Hello, Is It Me You're Looking For? Now, registering a patent is a trademark. So it's a sign that he wants to make these things. Is this true, though? How do we know? Let's have a little think. How might we check if this is true or false? Again, can people please turn off their microphone if they are watching the Google Hangout? As we continue, is this true or false? This one is true. But how do we know? Well, if it's a patent or a trademark and it's been registered, there are ways, there are official websites, official documents that can tell us that. And we can actually see here Lionel Richie at the US Patent Office, which is an official government website. We can check the official source to see if what the story is saying is true. And we can see he has 30 different trademarks for different products. Things like salad plates, dinner plates, electric chargers, nail polish and makeup and clothing. All of these things, all of these pictures, they're from the official US Trademark Office. So we want to look for official sources or data which might support a claim or a story. We want to see if we can, again, find another source, official sources, which will tell us if something is true or false. Next, this is an example from last year when there was an American Airlines flight, an aeroplane had to make an emergency landing after there was severe turbulence. There was a lot of bad weather and people were shaken around. They were shaking in the aeroplane. This story came out, and then afterwards, very quickly, a video was shared on social media, which they said this is from that aeroplane. So let's have a quick look at the video. So, how do we know if this is true or this is false? What do you think? Have a think about it, and then we'll have a look in a second. It looks real, but is it true? It is not. How do we know? Well, in this case, we want to look at the source. Who is sharing this? Are they in a position where they would be on the flight? You know, if it is their video or if it is a video from somewhere else. We want to look at the source. So if we look at the Twitter account, we can see he says he's from Maranello, which is in Italy, and that the aeroplane was going to Italy. But how do we know if this is true? Let's have a look at some of his source history. We can see one of his tweets earlier. He said, today snow fell in Florida. Well, we know that the aeroplane was going from Florida, but does this mean that this is true? Let's have some more. Flooding in New Jersey is another one of his tweets from the same day. But there's also bad weather in Cuba and also in Chile. This looks very strange. Maybe in this case, he just likes weather. He just likes news about weather. And this is becoming more and more suspicious that this guy is actually true, that the video is what it claims to be. Let's have a look at the comments on the video as well. He says quite quickly, it's anonymous. It doesn't belong to me. It's anonymous. It's recorded by a passenger on the flight, supposedly. In another one, he says, it doesn't belong to me. It's not mine. I downloaded it. All of these are big red flags making us think that this isn't true. And if you look along the other comments and people talking about it as well, someone says, it's falso, it's false. They say in the comments, sorry, let's go back. They say in the comments, it's false. And they give a link on the right there. They give a link saying it's from 2014. It's an old video which has been shared again. So we want to look at the source's history. We want to look at the comments and the replies and the conversation around this story, and whether that is on social media there or whether it's what people are saying about the story in the comments on a website, or it's what people are saying on other websites about that story. Look at the conversation around it and the source. Next one. This was a story where 3 club reps, 3 young men working in Ayia Napa, which is in the Mediterranean, they say that they woke up hungover for a boat trip and they accidentally went to Syria. So 3 young men, they were on holiday, they wanted to go somewhere, they had some drinks the night before, and they accidentally went to Syria. True or false? In this case, this one was false. Now, the only way that we found out about this, and this was published by a lot of news organizations, they sent pictures on Snapchat saying, oh, here we are in Syria, these are the pictures, this is so strange. And they sent these pictures to news organizations. And the news organizations then published the story saying this is real. We only found out later that this was false when they said on Facebook, they were talking about it and they were sharing all the stories from news organizations saying, look what we did, look, we're famous. But then they said to their friends, no, we made it up for fun. It was a prank, it was publishing. But how do we know before? This is especially true and important for journalists. How do we know before the event whether this is true or not? Well, we use something called EXIF data. Every single picture that we take on our mobile phones or on a digital camera has what we call EXIF data that saves the image. It saves information recorded on the camera to the image file. So the actual file, and you ask the source to email it to you. If you use the original file, you can look at the EXIF data and it will tell you the location. It will tell you the date. It will tell you the type of device used. So if that's an iPhone or an Android phone or a Samsung, or a DSLR camera, it will give you that information. And this website, Jeffrey's EXIF Viewer, is a really good way to check that. So journalists especially, if someone is trying to give you a picture and say, this is from an event that is happening now, and you can't find it in reverse image search, ask for the original file, make them email it to you, and then you can check the EXIF data, and you can see if it has all of the information which it should have about the location, about the date, about the device. It's also really important to know that if a picture is uploaded to social media, they take out the EXIF data. They take out this extra data. So if someone sends you a file and it doesn't have a lot of EXIF data, then that is a sign that maybe they downloaded it and it is not actually their picture. So the next one was get the original file, check the EXIF data for time and location information. Next one, a killer clown was chased out of a village in Cambodia, straight into a field of landmines. True or false? And how do we know? Well, this one was false. But again, how do we know whether this story was true or false? When it was published by a lot of different news organizations, they all referenced the Times of Cambodia. They said, this is our source. The Times of Cambodia is our source for this story. So what is the Times of Cambodia? Let's look at this website. The Times of Cambodia, they have stories which kind of look like a news organization in Cambodia that may be called the Times. But we can do something if we have a website called a Who Is check. We can look at when the website was set up, when it was registered. All of these different websites here, if you just Google or search for a Who Is search, you will be given lots of websites where you can do this check. If you put the URL, the website name, into one of these websites here, the Who Is check, you can see when the website was created, who created it, and any contact information. Now, sometimes and often, to be honest, when people make a website, they have privacy controls on there. But what you will always see is when the website was created. Now, the Times of Cambodia, when we do this check, we can see it was created, the creation date there, on the 16th of October, 2016. The Times of Cambodia story was published on October the 19th, 2016, 3 days later. Now, it would be very, very, very strange for a website, for a news organization called the Times of Cambodia, which sounds like a real thing, but to only be set up, only have a website on set up in 2016, and then 3 days later, have an incredible story like this. This is a big sign of a fake news website, is if it is a new website published a few days before a big viral story. And that's a good check that we do there, is to do a Who Is search on the website or the domain name and look into when that website was set up. We're nearly at the end of these now. This is at the more advanced level. This video shows the aftermath of a bombing in Al-Makalla in Yemen on May the 15th, 2016. Now, this bombing was a real event, but there was no video. There was only one video which came out of this and was shared on social media. And this is it here. This is this video that I'm showing you from Twitter. So let's have a look at the video. So, not a very nice video. Not a very nice video at all. We often deal with, and it's especially important in breaking news situations like we saw in Manchester on Monday, and in Paris and in Munich and all over the world. There are people trying to spread false information in breaking news situations. Is this video for real? Is it actually from the bombing in Al-Makalla in Yemen last year? What do you think? This one is true. But how do we know? Well, there are a number of different clues that we can use in the video itself. The video gives us a lot of information about the location, about where this happened, and about the time of day. Now, the report said that the bombing happened in the morning at 8 a.m., and you can see the man there with the shadow who is standing in the background. The shadow is quite long. In the morning, of course, shadows are quite long, especially in summer. And there is actually a website called SunCalc, which will show you the angle of the shadows at any location and at any time of day. So if we go to that location, Al-Makalla, and we choose the date and we choose the time, we can see the direction of the shadows actually matches up. And we can see the shadow length there says 2 meters. That looks like it might be around 2 meters. It looks accurate. With that information, we can also start to see what direction the camera is pointing. When it starts off, because the shadows will be going from east to west, we know that actually that camera now is pointing kind of southeast. We can start to think where this might happen. Other information that we have in there, we have in the background, the trees on the road and the road itself. We have a building in the background with some very unique windows, a big white building, another white building on top of the hill. And to the north, as we now know the direction because of the shadows, we have some mountains. So we can use all of those pieces of information to say that it happened away from the city. You will see that there aren't any, there are only 2 buildings. So this isn't in the city, this is away from the city. We can see to the south there that there is big open space and mountains to the north. So we can say that we think it is over here to the southwest and actually find the specific location by matching the trees on the road and the road, the building to the south with the white building with those windows, the building slightly to the northwest on the hill, and also the mountains to the north, as we can see there. Now, this is all quite advanced level stuff that we will cover in more detail, but it's very important for journalists to know these kind of checks. And to be honest, for anyone to do these kind of checks, to be able to know if something crazy, something really dramatic like this video is real or fake. And we can say in this case, this one was real. We can also use on Google Earth, if you have it, we can see pictures on the left there that people have already taken. They've already taken pictures of that building and put them on Google Earth. And we can match them together to see that that is actually real. And to the north, of course, we see the mountains, which on Google Earth we see too. So how to spot the fakes. And all of this, we will be going into a lot more detail in the coming weeks for all of these steps. And I will give you exercises, and we will go slowly and we will go in detail. But now is what I'm doing is going through the introduction and the tips and checks that we can do. So number 1, reverse image search using Google Images, TinEye, or an excellent plugin for Chrome. It's a browser plugin called RevEye, and we'll go into detail on that one next week. Next step would be to check for reports which say or show the same thing. Are other people, other sources saying this as well, and can we trust them? We can also look for official sources of data to support the claim. Are officials, like governments, which sometimes you can't trust as well, but are there official sources to support the claim? It's a question to ask. Can we check a source's history, their comments and their replies? What's the conversation around a certain piece of information? Can we get the original file from the source and check the EXIF data in a tool like Jeffrey's EXIF viewer? If we have a website that we think is that we don't trust, can we do a whois search to find out when that website was registered and see if there are any links or any names attached to it to find out who owns the website? Also, using the visual clues like the roads, the buildings, the landmarks, the landscape, any signs that are in the picture or video, any shadows that can give us information to find this location on public maps. Those are all really excellent tips and techniques that we will go into more detail through the coming weeks. But we also want to look at the sources. And where is this coming from? Who is sharing it? Where are they sharing it? How is it being shared? These are important questions to ask as well if we are going to find out where it's coming from and hopefully stop it. Well, like I said before, one of the most important things with all of this is to recognize your woe response. You can know all of those tips and all of those techniques on the left, but they are no use, they are no good if you don't know when to use them. So recognizing your woe response, recognizing if you think something is crazy, or you think something it makes you angry, or it makes you laugh, or it makes you shocked or surprised. Think whether ask the question, is this true or is this false? And then we can start to apply some of those checks. Number two, in finding the sources, is actually to find where these stories find where they're coming from. A good part of that is to set up Google alerts. Now, these are alerts whenever Google indexes websites, they can send you an email with a link to a story. So if you're looking for stories about, I don't know, Donald Trump or the US election, or if you're looking for kind of fake news, as you can see, these Google alerts that I have, these are just a small number of them, but these are all examples of things which I want Google to email me about. When there is new information, new stories published around this, I can create a Google alert, which will then send, I'll get an email, and I can use that in Feedly as well. Feedly is a really useful RSS feed. It's something where you can ask it to, whenever a website, if you are monitoring a fake news website or a website that you know publishes misinformation or publishes lies, you can use Feedly to tell you when they have a new story. And you can have it in, you can organize all of this into your Feedly here. This is an old picture for me, but you can see on the left, I have digital journalism and I have lots of sources in there. That's a folder with lots of sources. I have Aleppo, and this is actually with YouTube channels. This is a great tool because with YouTube channels, if you know there are YouTube channels which publish videos which are fake, you can watch them and monitor them, and Feedly will tell you when there is a new video from those. So here I put lots of sources from that were regularly publishing videos from Aleppo on the day that the siege of Aleppo started in November, because I wanted to know if there was new information. It's a really good way to monitor websites and to have it tell you when there are new stories on a website or when there are new videos published by a YouTube account. And that's what it looks like as well. You can have the updates appear as just text or as videos as well. TweetDeck is great for this as well. TweetDeck is really useful for monitoring Twitter because instead of just a single news feed, you can have multiple news feeds with different searches. And that might be from one account. It might just be from one user. It might be from a list of users. It might be from a search string, or it might be locations. And we'll talk briefly about this as well. You can create lists of Twitter accounts. So if you know, as you can see here in the background, I have my anti-hoaxers list, where I have places like Snopes and Hoax Slayer. When they publish, when they tweet about a story, or whenever they tweet, that all goes into my list for anti-hoaxers, and it all goes on my TweetDeck. And if you have Twitter, you can have TweetDeck as well, and you just create a new empty list, and then you can add certain accounts to it. You can add them to your list. A really good trick as well, if you find an account which you want on your list, New Jersey Fire Alert, this is an account which looks for breaking news in New Jersey. If you write memberships after the URL there, then you can see all of the lists that this person is on. So say you saw an account which is always sharing fake stories. You can go to that account, you can write memberships afterwards on there, and in the URL, in the website address for that account, and you can see all of the lists which that account is on. You can also copy lists. You can copy lists, and this is perfectly fine. It's not stealing, it's just copying. If you see a list which you like, go to Twitter List Copy Tool. You can search for this. It's a very basic website, but if you search for it, you can see and access the website with Twitter, and type in the username who you want to copy the list from. So user who owns the list you want to copy. Write the username in there, then you click Get Lists. You can see all of their lists and copy that to one of your own. So this is something which I'd like you to have a go at doing as homework. All of this will be on the Facebook page after the session. All of the exercises which you can do will be on the Facebook group after this session. But this is one of the exercises I want you to try between this week and next week. On TweetDeck, you can also do keyword searches, and this uses what we call Boolean search, when you have combinations of words that you want to find. This was a search, again, around Aleppo, when I was looking for news about the siege and the attack. When I had Aleppo in English or Arabic, and aircraft or assault or bomb or explosion. And what I'm asking Twitter or TweetDeck in this example is show me all the tweets which have the words Aleppo or in English or Aleppo in Arabic. That's one part of the search. Show me that, and any of these other words. And you can set up the searches like that, and you can, in TweetDeck, you can filter the results with images, with videos, with any media, with GIFs, and they're right there to filter those results. And we'll go into this in more detail in the coming weeks as well. You'll also want to monitor Facebook groups. Here are some of the groups that I'm in. Yes, I am in a fun board games group. That's just me and my friends. That's not fake news. But you can be in lots of different groups which you see sharing fake information. Excuse me. To see if they are, to find where these stories are coming from. CrowdTangle is another excellent tool as well. CrowdTangle is a free tool which Facebook has released. You will have to ask to have access to CrowdTangle. But you can monitor Facebook pages and make lists on Facebook, just like you can make lists on Twitter of sources that you want to watch. Certain pages, and it's only pages. This is not Facebook accounts, it's just pages. But if you see pages which regularly share false information, misinformation, then you can add them and make a list on CrowdTangle, and it will show you which of those posts are doing well. You can look whether it's overperforming. You can look for results based on the most recent or the interaction rates. You can also look at the most recent ones, or look at whether you just want photos or videos or Facebook Lives. There's all kinds of ways there that you can look for the kind of information that you need when you want to monitor and watch pages on Facebook which share misinformation. You can also do searches around certain keywords. And these are the ones that I have just for news, for when I'm at work. And you can do that on Twitter as well. You can do it on Reddit. It's really, really useful. So you want to find where the stories are coming from, and whether that's on Twitter, or if that's on Facebook, or if that's just on certain websites and YouTube accounts. You also want to look at where the communities where these stories are actually being shared. CrowdTangle actually have an excellent plugin for this, again for Google Chrome, that you can use in your browser. And if you are on a story, as you can see here, this story, fire damages CIA headquarters and reveals a gigantic drug lab. That's completely false. It's a massive fake news story. But do we know who is sharing this? Well, if you have the CrowdTangle plugin, which you can install on your browser if you use Chrome, you can actually see the different pages, the different Facebook pages that are sharing this. And you can see National Marijuana News, apparently that's a page, and they shared it. Vladimir Putin fan club, they shared it. World News Daily Report, that's the website where this came from, they shared it. And you can see what the different pages on Facebook that are sharing this false news story, this misinformation. It's really useful to find out who is sharing these stories and where they are sharing them to. You'll also want to look, like I said, at different Facebook groups, but also looking on Reddit, maybe looking on Big Contact You, maybe looking on 4chan and 8chan and Gab and Discord and all these kind of underground communities and small websites of people which regularly share and try to create misinformation. Digging into those websites and looking at those communities is a big part of trying to understand where these stories are coming from and how they are spreading, where they are being shared. With all of this, as you're doing this, you always want to collect this information. We are now being researchers. We don't just want to look at it, we want to remember where it is. That's how all of these stories, which are being published by major news organizations like BuzzFeed and like the New York Times, the only way they do this is by keeping a record of what they see and what they find so that they can make it into something official. It's no good just looking and then moving on. You have to keep a record. There's a good website. Was after the election in the US, when this became a big issue. Lots of people started to do this, and at bit.ly/suspicious sites was one of the places where people started to collect the websites and the sources. But it's important to do this for yourself as well. This example that I'm giving here will have lots of information from US and UK websites, but you want to do this for your country and to see from the places and the people and the pages and the websites that you find. So make a spreadsheet and keep a record of what you find and archive everything. These pages and these accounts and these websites, they will disappear sometimes. Sometimes Facebook or Twitter will just delete them, will delete the account. Sometimes the website will go away, so you have to make an archive and keep a record of everything. One way of doing that is by taking a screenshot. If you use a Mac, you can do that by, I've put on the screen here, you can press Command-Shift-3 to take a picture of the whole page, or Command-Shift-4 for just a segment of it. If you are on Windows, there's a snipping tool to take a picture. And all of these examples, all of this is from me taking screenshots so that I have a record of what I'm doing. And it's really important when you're doing this kind of stuff. You also want to use the web archive, which keeps an archived version of a certain web page. You can, you can submit pages that you want to be archived. So you can see there, save page now. If you find a website and a story which you think is very suspicious, save it, archive it, because it might get deleted and then you have lost your record, you have lost your story. I've mentioned plugins for Chrome a couple of times now, and this is another one for Web Archive. You can add it to your browser so that if you're on a website, you just click the button in your browser and it will keep a record of that page, which you can then go back to. A really good thing for video is a thing called Video Vault, which was created by someone at a university in the US, which will help you to save any videos which you think might disappear. You can get that at bravenewtech.org. And again, they have a Chrome extension, a Chrome plugin to add to your browser. That's something I will be talking about a lot here. It's really, really useful. But that's a great way to keep track of videos. So those are the tips. That's the kind of introduction that we've had. It's quite a long one. There's a lot to take in, I know, but we will be going into more detail in the coming weeks. When we want to let's go over all of this again, because it's important to repeat this, because it's been a lot. When we are the tips and the techniques for debunking and spotting hoax stories, a big part of that is reverse image search, looking to see if an image has appeared online before, if it already exists in an image database. But you can also check for other reports which say or show the same thing. You can look for official sources or data to support the claim. You can check a source. That's a really important part of it. Who is this person? Do they really know this, or are they lying to me? And you can check the history, the comments and replies to see if they are a trusted source. If you're a journalist, get the original file and check the EXIF data to see if something is real and if it's been it's from a different location, a different time, or it's been downloaded from the internet. Do a who is search on any suspicious websites or domain names, but also look at the visual clues like roads, buildings, landmarks, landscapes, signs, shadows, all those kind of things in a picture or video which you might be able to find in public maps to help you out. When we're talking about tracing the actual sources, recognize your woe response. Recognize when you have a strong reaction to something, because if you do, that might be a sign that someone is trying to trick you. You can also find where the stories are coming from, like figure out who is sharing this, who is creating this, where are they sharing them to, how are they spreading it so far, and find the communities where they are being shared to as well. And this can be through Facebook groups, through Twitter lists, certain words, for Feedly to look at certain websites and YouTube channels. And I will put all of this in the Facebook group later. You will be able to rewatch this video because I know I covered quite a lot, but to go back over that and see what you can find. And remember to collect and keep a record of all of the things that you see. Make sure you keep a record of the websites that you see and take screenshots of the pictures and videos so that if they get removed by the social network or by the website, you will still have a copy and you will be able to prove that you saw it before. So that's pretty much it for today. We've got a little bit of time for questions, and then I'll go over the last, oh dear, I'll go over what we'll be doing next week, and then we're done. Does anybody have any questions? I know that was quite a lot. If you have a question, you can type it into the little chat box there. Glad to hear it, Anita. Fake shadows. Sergio has put just the question in the comments there. Fake shadows. Fake shadows can exist. That's a possibility. But to be honest, when we're talking about pictures and videos which people are making that kind of fake shadows in, that's something which people often forget. That kind of detailed forensic image analysis is very difficult. It's something which people are paid a lot of money, and security forces and police and intelligence agencies do that kind of forensic analysis. Later, I'm going to be going into the basics of those kind of checks, but this is not that kind of detailed course. To be honest, doing that kind of very detailed forensic analysis, people train and are paid a lot of money to do that. I know some, and I will share that with you later in the in the later weeks. But in terms of the very detailed stuff, it's a difficult thing to do. Luckily, it's also something which hoaxers forget a lot of the time, and we'll come into that in the later sessions. The things around shadows and fake pictures. And Nasser has said that it's important to know, as well as all of these tools, it's important to know local sources and databases. And 100%, I completely agree. None of this is a replacement for traditional journalism and good sources and good fact checking and all of those fundamental parts of journalism. These are extra tools, extra skills, extra things that you can do. But it's still really important, as Nata says there, to have good sources, local sources. Ask people, speak to people. I do that all the time in my job. If I think something is a bit suspicious, call them up, speak to them. That's something which, as a journalist, it's a bit easier to do. And especially around, if you have a source on social media, sometimes you can speak to them. In breaking news situations, I do that all the time, because that way you get if they sound unsure, if you speak to them, you can hear it in their voice if you think they might be lying. But it is something which is very important as a journalist that you still need to have. None of this should replace the fundamentals of journalism. This is all extra skills, extra tools and tips and techniques, which are good to know. Any more questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, I'll quickly go over what we have coming up ahead. But I will tell you now, you probably know that on June the 8th, we have a general election here in the UK, where we're electing our next government. And so I will be very, very busy that week. The day of the election is the same day as our course. So on June the 8th, Thursday, June the 8th, there will be no course. That will be session 4, but that will not happen. Okay, so June 8th will be a week off. Next week, yes, we will do this. June 2nd? June 1st? I can't remember. But next Thursday, we will be doing this. The week after, June 8th, we will not be doing this. Okay, I have a job, unfortunately, and we have a general election, and this doesn't happen very often. But after that, we will continue as normal. So to show you very quickly, before we go, where we'll continue from, share my screen. So, session 3, that is next week. Next week, we're going to be doing a bit more detail in a guide to the different tools and techniques used to identify misinformation, including finding the original version of a picture or video and investigating a source. Session 4, so that will be session 3, June 1st, next Thursday. Session 4 will be on June the 15th. Okay, June 8th, we will not be doing this. Session 4 will be June the 15th. And then we'll be going into detail on some of that geolocation that I talked about, and also questioning the time and the date, and understanding the shadows like we were just talking about. On session 5, we'll have a guest lecturer. Hopefully next week I can tell you who that will be. That's the plan. Session 6, we'll be looking at best practices in debunking and communicating the truth to everyone. How do we tell people the truth? How do we tell them so that they believe it? And also tracing some of the sources of misinformation. Session 7, we'll look at investigating websites, networks, and individuals distributing fake news stories. And then in the final session, we will have a guest lecturer as well, who hopefully I will be able to tell you who that is next week. So these slides will all be in the, sorry about that, let's fix that. All of these slides will be in the Facebook group this evening, as will some exercises and some links to other places so that you can do some of the things that we've been talking about. But otherwise, I will see you in the Facebook group, and I will see you next week. Thank you very much for joining us.